It was just a thrill to get a call out of the blue that Albert Brooks wanted to meet me because I knew his short films on Saturday Night Live. And of course, Johnny Carson and all the various times that he was on television just doing stand-up type of comedian work. His absurdist point of view has always been very attractive to me. I was a huge fan.
Mr. Brooks?
I started out in the theater and then I moved on to television and film. One of the first big jobs I had was Barbara Apple in Apple's Way with Ronnie Cox. And we ran that for, I think, 26 episodes, and then we got kicked off by Sonny and Cher. I had done a wonderful miniseries called Washington Behind Closed Doors, and I think that that's where Albert Brooks saw me and asked to have me come in for Real Life. And then when I found out that Chuck Roden was going to be doing, whoa, I was just, I thought, an embarrassment of riches. And of course, we were all familiar with the PBS series on the Loud family that purported to be a groundbreaking experiment in anthropology. And it involved a film crew filming an American family in Santa Barbara, the Bill Loud family, in their daily lives and in their interactions with one another. It was the first real reality TV. And it was kind of a disaster. Albert got the nut of it, the heart of it. He realized, and it's a law of physics, I think, that, you know, by observing something, that which is observed changes. And so he saw that as a very funny premise and went with it. And I think that that was kind of the thrill of it.
We're all gathered here this afternoon to film Warren and his family and you folks and ourselves as well, because we're making a movie about reality.
Albert had a real sense of, oh, we're opening up a Pandora's box here, and I'm going to show you how and why. That's what Real Life did. The meeting at the airport is a really wonderful scene. Right from the get-go, we see this is going to be a disaster. First of all, he's there with all the leis, and he's so excited about meeting the Yeagers. Suddenly they're there.
6 minutes. Albert! Someone knows me in Phoenix. Hi, how are you? It's Warren.
We're in baggage.
We missed the plane. Great, good.
And he just flies down the corridor to meet them. And we come upon them when Chuck is, you know, Charles Grodin, is all starry-eyed about, here's the filmmaker, and now we're going to make a film together, and this is my family, and I am exhausted, angry. I had no idea we would be met at the airport, and it sets up the dynamic immediately. He kind of goes drifting off with the filmmaker. She's left with the luggage.
Warren, what am I supposed to do? Get this luggage myself?
I sort of feel like Jeanette is kind of in a different film.
Sorry, really. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm a little excited, I guess.
She just was not going to submit to the romance of the filmmaking and being on film.
Phoenix. Population, almost 1 million people.
Albert was thrilled to be going to Phoenix. He had memories of it from childhood, I think, going there with his family. And he was so excited that some of us had never been to Phoenix. And he's, oh, you know, you're going to love it. Oh, I loved it. And off we went, and we were in a Travelodge. And I think the picture of the Travelodge in Phoenix is the one we stayed at. The house itself was not in Phoenix, so we were actually filming all the house stuff in the valley in Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley.
Have a good time now. Be yourselves.
He had found the perfect setup in a cul-de-sac with two houses, you know, directly across the street from one another, which in itself is hilarious. I mean, all the shots of him running out of the house to grab a shot over at the Yeager's house just kill me. I mean, I think he's just hilariously funny. I had a great time. I loved every moment of it. And we would schlep our own costumes for the most part. Linda Martyr and Penelope Spheris, I think, both worked on both the set decoration and the costumes But for the most part, it was like, do you have a sweater? You know, what do you want to wear in this scene? I think I did my own makeup. Uh, I had to help iron sometimes, you know, when everything was very busy and there was no money. You know, we were doing this on the fly with very, very little money. It just had a real summer camp kind of atmosphere about it.
The filming has triggered a drastic emotional change in these people's lives. They don't know how to deal with it, and you don't know how to deal with it.
And that's bad?
All the players I was excited about. I mean, many of them I had seen on episodic television, and were also showing up in really interesting improvisational comedic troupes.
I would like to hear from Dr. Cleary.
You really want to know what I think?
Yes, please.
My friend Julie Payne is one of the behavioral psychologists who appears a couple of times in the film, also with David Spielberg, with J.A. Preston.
Are you crazy? You want to fly all these people to Colorado?
What?
Why don't you just put them all on drugs?
Of course, Harry Shearer was Pete the cameraman.
I'm a failure. I'm a failure.
You're not a failure.
I had such a crush on Albert, on Chuck. It was just a wonderful, loving atmosphere. And Chuck was a few years older than the rest of us, and he was very accomplished. But working with Chuck he had a mentorship quality about him. And he would always, you know, leaven the cake with a little humor, as does Albert. They have slightly different senses of humor, but really understood each other, too.
Here, we're gonna need some help. Larry, don't worry about filming.
In the film, where I see their interaction most reflecting what I observed Albert and Chuck's interaction to be was when we were moving the great big TV into the house, when Albert's trying to make everything okay for the family again. And there's just a little interchange at the doorway, which just had the quality, the essence of something very sweet between the two of them.
You'll do now. You'll do good. You'll love this thing.
I love
You'll
it.
love it.
I love it. I
It's
appreciate
very
it.
expensive.
I know. Thank you. Thanks
Okay.
so much.
Okay.
It was very well scripted. So any improvisatory moments that usually occurred around something that happened. For instance, the meeting of the crew.
First AD, second AD.
What's an AD?
Assistant director. We'll get to it in a second. Another trucker.
What are these people's names?
Not important. Let me just get through the whole list here, okay?
Jeanette is always trying to be a good person. I think she has deference towards these people. She's trying to remember names, and she wants to get to, welcome everyone and thank them for being there, and then all of a sudden they're leaving, and she doesn't know which ones are coming back or where. So that was something of just being launched.
What can I tell you?
And that's what Albert gave us great freedom in. This is the scene, this is the setup, this is what's going to happen, go. And that, to me, is the greatest gift an actor can have. I thought that the humor, if I could play it as realistically as possible, a woman who was really, really on the edge of a nervous breakdown and really angry with all the men around and their insensitivity, that it would be funny. I love the moment at the dinner table when she speaks about having terrible cramps and bleeding like a stuck pig and wanting to vomit all over the table. It's something that a wife would say to a husband. And she's determined that if this is what he wants, if he wants total honesty and clarity and this about the family, then here it is, buddy. Have at it.
Honey, do you think it's safe for you to be eating with your heating pad in your lap?
I have terrible cramps. I am bleeding profusely, and I want to vomit on the table.
It was a time, too, when the women's movement was really gaining some real momentum. And the whole idea around, the idea of mansplaining didn't come in, that word didn't come in for many, many decades, but it was in the zeitgeist, and women were really angry with men. And she was going to say anything she wanted to say. She's so upset by the whole situation. And yet right in the middle is one of the subtlest, funniest lines for me in the film, and that is when she's furious with her husband for making up to the cameras and acting as if there are rules at the dinner table. Since when do we have rules at the dinner table? And then Eric spills the Coke, And Lisa starts to mop it up, and in the middle of berating her husband, she says,
Lisa, don't use my good linen napkin to wipe.
and then we know that she's put out her best stuff for the dinner. It's just a little piece of genius. The only times I really did work with the kids, particularly, was at the dinner table scene, and then just briefly with Lisa when they're running off to the vet emergency and we're trying to go to her communion. And they were not actors, those kids, you know, they were some friends' kids, I think. I mean, they did a great job. I'm not a mother. I never had children, but I did, in very close succession, do some of the iconic 80s mothers in films like Gremlins, Footloose, Back to the Future, and Stand By Me. It's very interesting to me that it worked out that way.
Over here!
I think I understood from the get-go that Real Life was really a film about the filmmaker as much as anything. So I thought it would be very important to make her extremely real so that you could sort of see that the filmmaker was just overstepping bounds like crazy. You know, because she's so angry with her husband and she transfers all her affection to the filmmaker for a moment, and then when she gets over her upset and she chooses to meet him privately.
I was kind of hoping we could be alone.
Oh, this is alone. I mean, this is as alone as I ever get. How was your week?
Nothing's private in this film, so it's hilarious. You're just in the moment and you're seeing other human beings moving around you while you're trying to have a conversation with one person. Somebody is walking over, they happen to have a camera on their head, and God knows what those funny things we're seeing, but there's something that goes on that just people just drop the facades and let it rip, you know, just be themselves. And I think that for Jeanette, that's what she had to find.
I think that what you said there was right.
What did I say?
Whatever you said about you not being any better than what I already have.
I said that?
Once the film came out, I had some very interesting reactions from women friends and random women saying, oh my God, that was like so raw. And it was almost embarrassing to watch. It was like it was really happening. And you got so angry and that was so great.
Honey, what's the problem?
There's no problem. I just don't like you very much right now, I'm sure.
They really thought it was pretty subversive. And I hadn't thought about that. You know, you don't think about that before something actually goes out public and then hits the public and then they feed it back to you in some way. So it hit some kind of a nerve.
Oh, it's a lovely day today. It's a cheery kind of day.
The film itself, I just thought it was so terrific, and it really deserved much more than it had at the time. And it was so prescient. But I think Albert did anticipate reality TV. Our sort of salacious desire to know what the inner workings of someone else's life is like. I think that finally, at the end of Real Life, we find that what we have been watching is a whole inquiry into what is reality? How can we ever point at one thing and say, this is reality? You know, the great relativity of it all, and trying to find some kind of center, which may or may not be there.